so many legends in this building today.
Legendary. On today's episode of Legendary I Lived It podcast, we have Adam Blackstone. Adam is not only a good friend, but also he is one of the world's leading music directors for the Super Bowl, for the Grammys, and many of the artists you know and love. Adam, welcome to the show.
So we were talking about the first gig.
If I did a quick little timeline, I would start with my first big gig being Jay-Z at Madison Square Garden, Fade to Black, his farewell concert.
Yeah.
But, you know, before that, I had been a workhorse around the city of Philadelphia and all up and down the East Coast, whether it be clubs, restaurants, jazz gigs. I'm a big theater buff and still am. So like pit bands and stuff like that. And that's all while I was in school in Philadelphia, University of Arts. I walked into another club called the Five Spot, which was kind of like a open mic. Mm-hmm. And at that time, you know, neo soul was booming or about to really, really boom. And come to find out, some folk from the Roots were running that open mic weekly. And I linked with them and that changed my life, you know. So I've done countless interviews and let them know, like, you know, Questlove and James Poyser and Sean G and Richard Nichols, rest in peace. Like, they have been a really big part of adapting who I am sonically and musically, even around the town. So Amir kind of took me, Questlove kind of took me under his wing, and I ended up playing with Jay-Z when he was doing his live thing. At that time, that was kind of new for hip hop. Not new, but, you know, new on that level, on that scale. From there, it's just been very, very fast. So many far and few in between, but I met a kid in a pink polo shirt at the Jay-Z concert. He said, yo, you should come rock with me. His name was Kanye West. So I ended up working with Kanye right after Jay-Z. When I went on tour with Kanye, there was a new Barbadian little girl that was opening for us. And she said, yo, I got a new record. It's coming out. We're going to come work with me. So that was Rihanna. And
Ponder Replay.
Yeah. And Umbrella was just coming out.
Wow.
I started working with Rihanna, and there was a new light-skinned kid from Toronto kind of chasing her around a little bit. And I ended up working with him. His name was Drake. And it's just so many far and few in between, man. Janet Jackson, you know, of course, in my last 5 years have been pretty steady with Justin Timberlake. And I met Johnny Wright through you and working with on Joe's solo record. And, you know, we always all of us just stayed in touch, and, you know, Philly Mac and going over to the Rock and stuff like that. So it's been so many people, but, you know, it's been everybody from, you know, Jill Scott to Puff Daddy, Eminem, John Legend early, you know, LL Cool J was one of my first big gigs, as well as MD, 2005. It's been really, really cool. I've worked with a lot of people, and that's not even everybody. You know, growing up in my gospel roots, it's been amazing to work with Mary and Kirk Franklin and all of those people that, you know, have even helped shape, you know, the sounds I listened to growing up. So I've been able to be versatile.
Yeah, there's no question. You know, if you go out on the street and ask anybody who is the music director, the guy to put your vision and activate it with a band and musicians, that's you, man. There's no question.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I take what I do very seriously. In the last 10 years to 12 years, I've taken it as a compliment that these labels and managers hit me up, because that means they believe in their artists and their song. You know what I mean? So,
right.
You know, I'm excited to see the trajectory that we can, you know, work together to make the song and the artist even bigger.
Now, you mentioned your background. So you grew up in church like my kids did. You grew up in a church background.
Yes.
Give us a little insight into how that shaped you for who you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big part of who I am, and even how I play in my programming now is shaped a lot from those surroundings and even who I work with. But yeah, my dad is still currently a church organist.
Hmm.
My mom sang in the choir. My uncles was the drum. My uncles were drums, and my aunts were in the choir, and just grew up around music in general my whole life. I remember one day my dad coming home and telling my mom he quit his job to kind of focus on music full time. And so, looking back at it, what I would call that now is he was like a wedding band guy. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? But that wasn't the name. That was just his job. It didn't really have a title then. He was just a musician. You know what I'm saying? And as I think about it, deeper, he was the first like musical director I've ever seen, because he programmed his own drum beats and put his own segues together so he could keep the party going while they was doing the Macarena or electric slide or whatever that, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that helped shape me a lot. And church in general, man, it was one of those things where, my dad would say, hey, you playing piano today? Hey, you playing drums today? I'm not going to be at church next week. Learn this on the organ. You know what I mean? So it was never really like it was just throw you in the fire. And that's what, one of the things that has helped shape me be prepared for all obstacles in what we call now our music business.
Right.
And then, letting the spirit of the environment move you to make musical decisions, and improvisation has helped me as well. It's a different type of spirit, of course, at church, but in the spirit, whether I'm at Madison Square Garden and I have to make a decision for everybody of a chord or to start or stop a song, like it all feels the same to me. So church has really helped, hone in on what those challenges would be for somebody else that maybe did not grow up in the church setting.
I think a lot of people out there don't really get how influential the church is in music and how creative an environment it can be. Not always, but it can be for young guys like you and me and my sons, where you can just get up and play before you're ready. And it's just like jump off the ledge.
Yeah. And the other thing is me being a father now, it's the encouragement that you get. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry about if anybody is going to boo you or anything like that, because at the end of the day, we're all talking about our same God and talking about uplifting each other to be in a better place. So, I've seen video of Nick and everybody and the encouragement that they get and the claps and stuff. It was the same thing growing up for me. It's like, you get the claps and you get the encouragement, and then us children who want to possibly do music, that is enlightening for us, and it encourages us to keep going. You know what I mean? Because I know, like my son, he loves when people cheer for him. So the next week, the next service, he's ready to go again. You know what I mean?
And practices all week stages, because of it.
Exactly. So that stage, I hate to call church a stage, but that stage has helped, all of us prepare for some of the biggest things in our life.
Well, you mentioned some artists. I mean, you could go to Whitney, CeCe Winans I was talking to earlier, my kids, like the John Legend, Kanye, like that spiritual influence has raised up a lot of kids that have had big influence in the mainstream.
And it continues to help shape a sound as well. You know what I mean? That's the other thing about church, is like whether you're doing, Christian contemporary or full out gospel or, improving in the spirit, it's like you get to hear different styles through one avenue. You know what I mean? So it's great to open your ears as well as a musician.
That's great. Well, some people leave it there though. They just play by ear. They just play in the spirit. You're rare. You took it and you can do it all. Like you took it also to further education.
Yeah, education has been very crucial and critical for me to get where I am. Honing in on my music composition and my reading of music was a big deal for me. And it continues to be a big deal. I'm able to do sessions that some other people who can't read music can't do, and I always wanted to try to be able to do everything and be the best when I get called to be prepared to be the best at everything. And so going to school, learning to read at an early age and continuing to read even through my adult years is like a big deal. I recommend it for any musician that, notation is a very big deal. You guys have called me for award shows where I need to score something for an orchestra, or I just did Eminem was just on SNL with the 8-piece orchestra. So it's like, I want to be able to do those things. Even though I may call in a arranger or something like that, I want to be able to know, hey, bar 48, that's an A flat and not an A. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that to be able to communicate that to my peers in different environments and different settings is a blessing to me. So education has definitely, been a catalyst as well to help me get to where I am.
And that separates you from a lot of the guys that are out there that are just very talented musicians. They definitely know what they're doing, but can't live in both worlds.
Yeah. And the funny part is it's so many worlds. As small as our industry is, it's so many worlds. The theater world is way different from the stage. The stage is way different from a movie set. The movie set is way different from Broadway. And Broadway is way different than from the studio and tracking and making beats. You know what I mean? So I want, at the end of it all, I want to have been able to do it all. And so I got to stay up on everything, and reading music is a big part of that.
That's great. Well, I was shocked. Another thing I was shocked at, your main instrument. What is your main instrument?
I'm going to say my main instrument is bass.
And it's because of your hesitation. That's why I asked, because I have rarely seen anybody that can move around the room the way you can and put all of it together in a way that is cool and different, still holds on. But I've watched you go from bass to keys to drums to I've seen you walk around showing pros how to do what you have in your head.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of my church background as well. My mom and dad throw me in the fire like, this is what you're doing this week. It was not a question. It was, this is what's happening. The drummer's not showing up. You're playing drums. You know what I mean? But and the other part of that, fast forward, is that when people call me and they trust me for my sound and I know what I hear in my head to execute it, I wanted to be able, like I said, just like notation, I wanted to be able to actually hop on specifically rhythm section instruments and show them what I meant if I had to. Now, I've been blessed to have a team of people that we work together so much. I can, sing or mouth something and they kind of know where my head is musically. If I'm walking into a situation and I'm just the musical director and I'm not playing, which has happened with me just very recently with like a band, like when I do Maroon 5, they're a band. So I'm not playing bass in their band, even though they're hiring me to be their music director. If I have a lick or a fill or, a chord, me being versatile enough to hop on and show them what I mean, has helped me in the past. You know what I mean? So I continue to, try and develop further skills on each of those rhythm instruments specifically, like I said, because I want to be prepared for all that comes my way. And like I said, I've recently in the last 5 years been working with bands, you know what I mean? Whether that be the Jonas Brothers or, like I said, Rascal Flatts, Maroon 5, I'm working with bands and they are together already, but they want to change it up a little bit. They might want to spice it up. They might want an arrangement for television, anything. So when I come in, I need to be able to communicate with them. We speak the same language of music, but my approach might be different. So I want to be able to show them what my approach is, whether it be keys or bass or drums, guitar.
Amazing. Well, we've benefited from it. But as a musician myself, mostly keyboards, I sat back watching you kind of do your magic several times. And it is truly impressive to see you work that room.
Thank you, Pops.
So recently, you've done some big gigs.
Second time MDing the Super Bowl, Shakira and Jennifer Lopez. Very monumental time for us to have two minority, Latin women headline, what we deem as one of the biggest stages. So
yeah,
I was their together choice to MD the show because both artists for sure have their own camps. I had never worked with them individually, but the NFL recommended that they hire one person to kind of bring the vision together, and I was who they chose. So I'm very thankful about that. And I think it came together very, very well.
It was insane. It was so good. Your arrangements were rocking from beginning to end.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Shout out to their individual teams, and they were able to come with the heat. I put my own spice and transitional things on it and brought my own ideas, but for sure that gig specifically is a complete team effort. I appreciate you bigging me up, but when it's bad, I gotta accept it too, and when it's good, I gotta accept it too. So I like to always accept the team, you know what I mean? So yeah. I'm thankful that came out cool. And yeah, that's 2 months of preparation for 14 minutes. You know what I mean?
It's insane. I know.
Yeah.
All of those big moments.
Yeah, it's like it happened so fast. The preparation. That's what I think people won't ever get. Even going on tour and entertaining for 90 minutes. We rehearse for a 90-minute show. We might rehearse for 100 days. You know what I mean?
Right.
Minimum. So. Once you hit that second or third city, you kind of in a flow, but that's because of the preparation. And that's, not to skip over what we're talking about, but that's one of the things I think me and you always linked up on and respected about one another was just the prep process and wanting to just be great before we have to fail out on stage. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, that's what this is about. This is for the guy in church out there somewhere that can play several instruments, is working his way around the church instruments, or the guy that's playing in the club or he has some band, but he wants to walk into this world. We need to speak to the next generation of A&R guys, the next generation of executives or producers, in this case, music directors and arrangers. And yeah, this is exactly like that prep. If you don't do it, the show falls apart. People don't realize the moving pieces that are everywhere that a guy like you has to think about, because your stage is moving. The walls, the video walls are moving. The lighting is moving. All of it.
I mean, learning about time code, you know what I mean? Like that happened for me. I'm thankful that it happened for me early. I was doing Kanye West, Glow in the Dark. I never forget. And like John Goldstein, lighting director to the stars. And then I ended up working with like Nick Whitehouse, lighting director to the stars. Like, he's like, yo, so your arrangements are cool, but like, can you send it to me with time code? And I was like, okay. And then I did my own research. Like, you know what I mean? So that's the other thing about
that's
me.
the fake it till you make it.
And I'm going to figure it out later. I don't even want to say fake it, but I'm going to figure it out. You know what I mean?
No, that's good.
So, fast forward, 10, 12, 14 years later, doing the Super Bowl. And like, I know that's the first thing that the NFL needs. They're cool with the cool, pretty chords and all that, but they want a time code strike, period. You know what I mean? They want to know when we move this light, this is where that person's going to be. This is the hit it's going to be on. This is the artist that is executing this hit. So it's things like that.
And there are safety issues.
Safety issues, timing issues. A show like the Super Bowl, we are forcing a concert in the middle of a sporting event. You know what I mean? I can't go over. So when I send that time code, it ain't no vibing on a chord or we're going to, improvise on this. It's like, you have this amount of time. Patrick Mahomes is coming out and he's going to hit you with a football if you don't get out of it. You know what I mean? Like, or we're going to start wheeling the stage off if you, if you go rogue. So, it's things like that, and I don't think people realize that even in our own music touring setting, if there are moving parts, safety is a big thing. If you don't execute something and pyro goes off or something like that, and you're not where you're supposed to be, it could be a bad move. So
we were at a radio show once with Joe. Well, it was all three guys. And they told us exactly where to be when the pyro went off, and somebody shot it off early when Joe was leaning forward. It barely missed his head. Barely. At a radio show where it wasn't rehearsed, but it could have been a disaster. It could have been, Michael Jackson had a moment with fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to be honest and say, I'm sure that has happened. I think about Curtis Mayfield, man. Like, I know that was the 70s, but a lighting truss fell on him and paralyzed him. So,
right.
It's one of those things where our teams and our crew, that's another thing that we practice. We practice building and tearing down the stages and knowing how much weight is supposed to be here. Radio shows are so dangerous if you think about it, not musically, but I'm saying crew-wise.
Oh, yeah.
They're not setting up for their specific artist. It's not your crew. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, that pyro thing could have really, really gone wrong because they technically may not know the Joe Bro show. You know what I mean?
Or how in the moment my son Joe is.
The artists are, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, it's the preparation process for, us speaking to that new generation is so heavy. And then not only that, be prepared yourself when you get called into that light and that call, and know that, you may not get that opportunity again. You know what I mean? I think some of the younger generation, because we have YouTube, Instagram, Twitter like that, it's so
TikTok.
Easy to see. It's so easy to feel like you are involved in the artist's life or the band's life or the tour life. But like, I didn't really grow up with that. So I never thought about, I could DM Johnny Wright. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I never thought about like I could, DM, Sean G or DM somebody and say, I'm ready. I'm a bass player. I'm a musical director. Now with that access, I think people sometimes skip a step of the grind out. You know what I mean? So I would love to tell the younger generation, like, yes, the access is there, but also be prepared when you do, and if you do get that call, and if you don't get that call, continue to grind. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because somebody's watching you, somebody's listening to you, or somebody's recommending you. A lot of my recent new hires are because of recommendations that come from people I've worked with the last 10 years. You know what I mean?
Well, if people ask me, I recommend you. Like I'm like, look, he's the best of the best, and you get, you pay for the best, but there's one guy. And the other thing that you've done that I think is really smart is all over the nation, you have players.
Yes.
Your connections to guys that can do it. I feel almost like I could call you from Atlanta or Detroit or Chicago or Seattle, and wherever I am, by showtime, I could have somebody to fill a spot.
Absolutely. And, that was one of the reasons why my wife and I started our company in 2010, 2011, Basic Black Entertainment, because I was getting those calls because of people like you and other artists that trusted me when I couldn't be there, and they knew I couldn't be there, but they say, hey, this person will call, they'll get them somebody here to have the same integrity, the same musical aptitude, the same musicianship. And it's worked out for me, man. I feel like I put somebody on and they winning. I feel like I'm winning too. So it's all good.
That's awesome. And they're not afraid of you, but they definitely respect you.
I think it's about the respect. Yeah, I demand respect because I'm a perfectionist, but at the same time, I know who I'm calling as well. So it's like I let them be genius at what they do, even though I have to oversee it.
Yeah.
There's so many talented guys that are able to, hold their own.
Love it. Well, a lot of folks out there saw you, and especially this next generation that was coming up, they saw you in a suit in front of a group of people, and it was button down, suit and tie. Amazing record, but really the show you put together was unbelievable. The band, the team. Tell us what it was like, because I really felt like that was not only transitional for Justin Timberlake, but it kind of moved music into a new generation, like that, a new direction. What was that experience like?
That was a good time. I never really thought about transitional, but I think you're right, because at that time, he, Jay-Z, Beyonce, they were kind of all in the same, physically in the same space for a long time, working in New York. And we got those 3 consecutive albums like right away. You know, we got 2020, we got Magna Carta from Jay-Z, and I think we got Beyonce's the B album like right at the same time. So it was a good time in music. Justin had took 7 years off. He was doing his movie thing. Johnny Wright, who hired me for Joe Jonas and the Joe Bros. We always kept in contact. I think I worked on a couple artists for him on the side, you know, through that 7-year Justin hiatus. And when Justin was ready to go back, you know, Justin kind of, from what I understand, explained to him the new direction he was going, and also what the sound was of some of those records. Johnny recommended me. I got to New York. I never forget. I sat down Christmas Eve or 2 days before Christmas with Justin at a restaurant. I don't know, man. We just hit it off. You know, we talked music, we talked family, we talked faith. Then he said, "Yo, come to my car real quick. I'm gonna play you some joints." And he played me Suit and Tie. And I think he knew my relationship with Jay-Z then as well. And I don't know. That was December 23rd. January 2nd, we were at rehearsal. It was like 2 weeks later, he had me put a new squad together, and that was 2014, 13 or 14. And we have been on the go ever since that day.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So that's kind of how it happened for me. I think that the naivety of not knowing how big that album was going to be helped me prepare in a way where I wasn't thinking about what people are going to say, because it was a brand new thing for both of us. He allowed me to do me. He trusts my creativity. I trust my team, the amazing team that I was able to put together, that he trusted me to put together. And yeah, we've been rocking ever since, man, as the Tennessee Kid. So it's been great.
Well, the entire team, including the choreographers, Marty and that team. I hope to have Marty on as well, man. I love that guy.
Marty K is one of the dopest for sure. And he you know, I met him through the Joe experience as well, but you know, he's legendary when it comes to Justin. And he took on more of a creative director role as well. So I worked heavy with him, and his suggestions of drops and hits, or even his just letting me do my thing. He said, "Yo, do you? It's all good." I respect that, and I'm thankful for that, because now we just have a synergy. You know what I mean?
That's so good. Well, it showed. Every time I saw it, it was like, oh. I love it when I say jealous in the sense of like love for the art. I was jealous of that moment, because it was so, it almost was perfect, because it tied the old to the new, and it just brought us all in.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to ask you, give me an artist that you haven't worked with that you would love to work with.
That's a good question, Pop. You know, I just worked with one of my favorite artists of all time, Brandy. So that was a great experience, growing up listening to her and me knowing what she's done for me sonically with her albums. That was really good. I think D'Angelo would be a person.
Ooh.
I have like a few, Pop. So I don't know. You said
No, that's
one. You
good.
told me to name one.
You can name 10.
I think D'Angelo.
I like this list.
D'Angelo would be amazing. Eric Clapton, I think is another one which I just love his music.
Mm-hmm.
Sting would be super cool to work with.
You would be amazing with Sting.
Man,
because those that classical with, it'd be amazing.
Just his bass playing alone has helped shape a lot of the things that I'm, even trying to still get into. So that would be super cool. I don't know, the late Michael Jackson would have been one for me. I just kind of really got into Whitney as well. I've been studying sounds, especially live band sounds, and just watching Ricky Minor do his thing with Whitney through the 90s and through 2000s when they weren't really using playback tracks and stuff like that. It's really cool to hear the approach.
No, he's a beast.
So
he did quite a few things with us, and of course he had his TV exposure as well. But I mean, those days they hardly had click track.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So just insane to hear their approach live, and just the tuning of the drums, and him playing synth bass and the early stuff like that. So the Whitney era was really, really amazing as well. But I would say those 5 right there have been in my iPod for a long time, and I would jump at the chance to work with them.
I don't know if you know about this connector, but Questlove actually DJ'd my son Kevin's wedding. Did you know that?
I don't think I did.
Yeah. I mean, it was a surprise. We go out after the wedding itself, we get to the reception, and then suddenly Questlove pops up with the most amazing set list I've ever heard from a DJ.
He's incredible. Yeah, he's a musical icon, genius. He still, he still continues to amaze me, even though I call him my friend right now. But, him having perfect pitch, he sings me bass lines all the time that are absolutely correct when I might be approaching something wrong. He's given me music to listen to through my adolescence which helped shift my approach to bass playing. While I was listening to a lot of jazz and maybe some gospel stuff, he gave me, some hip hop. He gave me some classical. He gave me, different tones and some rock and roll. So I can only imagine the set list that he had for jazz.
It was everything. I mean, he flows in and out from pop in the different decades to funk to straight up disco, like a real, but always great music.
Yeah.
If you're a real music fan and music, he pulled out some great, great stuff. The only other guy I put in kind of the same kind of category who has that perfect pitch and voice on that instrument was Michael Bland, who had all that.
Yes.
Has all that. So amazing. Well, look, it would be impossible, and I wouldn't want to do this podcast with you without asking you, like, we're in a tough spot in the world right now. And you know me, and it's coming from a heart of love. You know, that, man, and I would love to hear, as a black musician, as a leader in your field, what are you experiencing as we walk through this racial tension, and what would you like to see happen?
Whew, yeah, I mean, I grew up in an affluent, middle class, but black neighborhood and family. So, I was able to see very many African-American success stories. So when I got out into the world, I didn't know the type of racism that I would endure. I didn't know that people would not think that I was already the best, because I grew up and people told me I was great, not because of my skill, but just because of the love that they had for me and, us as family. And so, it's tough to have to go through life as a Black man and, kind of walk on pins and needles. And, I gotta take my hood off, take my hat off. And, and when I walk into rooms, corporate wide, I gotta, drive and see police and make sure, my mom always tell me, put your hands on 10 and 2 when you see the police, buckle up, because we just have to move different. And it's sad. But, Black lives matter and, all lives matter. Yes. But, all lives can't matter until the Black lives matter. And really that's about like a structural change.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's about sparking dialogue and changing the conversation. And, that means major change in like police reform and justice system, our schools, our jobs, for infrastructure and economic development. So, I just feel like this fight is for everyone. We have to be unified. We got to raise solidarity whenever necessary, So, I'm hoping, I've had good and bad experiences with race. A lot of good though. A lot of good. I've had a lot of good. But well, this fight is for everyone that just...
You call me Pops.
Yeah.
And you're one of my children of the heart. I love you and it breaks my heart. Like the fact that you even have to think about where your hands are on the steering wheel.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny part is, Pops, I gotta ask you, this is deep, but like my mom and dad told me that growing up. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you walk into the store, always get a receipt. You Black, they gonna think you stole it. I don't care if you paid for it. Get a receipt. You see the cops at 10 and 2. Like, did you ever have? You got 4 boys. You know what I'm saying? Baby boy is a little more well off than like maybe what Kev was born into. You know what I mean?
Completely.
But like, yes. But I'm saying like, the navigating as a parent, man, I have a 5-year-old boy and we have to move different. I gotta tell him, you can't do what unfortunately the other color may do and get away with. How did you...
that breaks my heart. My kids, I didn't have to train my kids to basically take their hat off, watch their hoodie, make sure you have a receipt. If they pull you over, say this. They didn't get that training because fortunately and unfortunately I'm white.
Yeah.
And
it's the privilege, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but it's definitely the privilege of your race.
I grew up in a cotton mill town in North Carolina in poverty, but can't deny that I have white privilege. Like it. You understand what I'm saying? Like I was poor, very poor. Didn't know how poor I was because everybody else was poor, and that poverty was an equalizer in regard to my perception of life and race.
Yeah.
But I had a privilege that a lot of people don't. And here's a man who can do the Super Bowl, do stadiums with Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake, travel with Rihanna, Maroon 5 and even Rascal Flatts, and still has to think about getting a receipt at a restaurant. We have to make some changes.
For sure. I was doing a session for a new movie coming out called In the Heights. Lin-Manuel. I had my upright bass. Actually, I just had it. I don't know if you can see my uprights right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Had it in the back of my truck and got pulled over by the cops, and they asked me, "Was it a gun?" And I was like, "Sir, no, I just came from orchestra. I just came from an orchestra session." He's like, what are you, a rapper? And I was like, nah, I play the contrabass. Like, you know what I mean? So, I laugh it off now, but if I was white, would they have asked me, was I a rapper? Or would they have asked me, is my upright bass a gun? You know what I mean?
I don't think
I
there's
don't
much of
know.
a chance. No. And
I don't know. The crazy part about it is, we look at some of these mass killings. I'm not going to even go to the George Floyds and the Ahmaud Arbery's and stuff like that, but we look at some of the mass killings and they're young white men. You know what I mean? Like my upright bass, I guess, is the length of a bazooka, but it's like, ain't no black people I know got no bazookas. Like, you know what I'm saying? We not going to the schools and shooting. And I'm not trying to make light of it, but I'm saying, like, even systemically, you're asking me because of my color, but the truth of the matter is more likely that a Caucasian man may have a rifle. You know what I'm saying?
no question.
So it's rough, man, and we got to start broadening the conversation about all violence, state violence, you know what I mean? Which includes the ways in which Black people are intentionally left powerless at the hands of police and state. So it's rough.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
Asking for equality, you know what I mean? That's really all. Not to be better than anybody, because I don't feel like that's anybody's right. But, we just got to keep talking about the ways in which, Black lives are deprived of our basic human rights and at times our dignity. So, we're waiting for that to change.
You need a serious mindset change and heart change if you don't recognize that there's a lack of equity. There's a lack of equality in the execution of our ideals, and we have to fix it.
Yeah. And it's going to start with people like you, Pops. Honestly, you have a voice. You walk into a room and they automatically respect you, not just because of the amazing things you've done. I'm never going to diminish that. And I've seen you take your family from North Carolina to where you are now. So, but because you have a voice and because of who you are, and unfortunately because of your privilege, they will listen to you. So I appreciate you, even having a voice to speak up and say how you feel, which I know your heart and I know how you feel. So, keep using your platform. I beg you to continue to use your platform to speak good.
I will. And, maybe it's just because of the way I was raised. And so when people say, well, how did they get this? It's like, well, I was part of it. I'm musical. But that soulfulness did not come from me.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I know that here in reality, I have privilege. But what's sad to me is I've lived a life receiving the privilege and honor of what a culture brings to me.
Wow, that's deep.
So I
that's
genuinely...
deep. That's deep. Your privilege, they don't even know the privileges that the other culture has given to you for you to even have privilege.
Nick wouldn't be soulful without that culture. He wouldn't have a black choir singing behind him, doing Jealous the way he did it. That's legit. His soulfulness came from... I'm not soulful, I'm a singer. That came from Bayou Butch, his grandfather, who looked at him when he was 3 or 4 years old and said, Nick, do you see anything different about me? And Nick looked in and he went, you're bald and you got a big nose. Nick didn't say, you're black.
Yeah.
He didn't care, didn't know. All he knew was this man's playing music that inspires me. And that was my life. Andre Crouch, when he died, my wife was worried about me, man.
Right.
I was depressed for at least a week and a half, 2 weeks because of his impact on my life. And so we owe you, this is not a political podcast and it's not going to be. We owe you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Like I said, the biggest thing we can do is use our voice. It's going to take our allies, of the other race, to continue to use your voice as well. So I appreciate the whole Jonas family, you know, what you stand for, what you believe in. Continue to tell your story. Like, just the grandfather story alone is deep. You know what I mean?
But
like,
you know what, though? The boy's grandmother, Malu, came to a concert and said, I'm here to see my sons, the Jonas Brothers, and security had to come check with us. They left her outside. And we were like, what is your problem? We had to go grab her. She's part of our family. You know, we live in a world where that just assumptions shouldn't be made.
It's crazy. That's super sad. And you know, I as a 13, 14-year-old kid watching Rodney King, I thought LA, just in general, was just so far away from me. You know what I mean? Your sons may have thought that too, growing up in New Jersey. I was in New Jersey at the time. And to know 30 years later, we actually, you know, if you think about just the act alone of the police brutality, we're in a worse place because George Floyd died. At least Rodney King lived and we caught it on tape. So, you know, just imagine all the things, you know, that we don't catch and that we aren't able to see. And, you know, I got to be honest and say, and I'm sure a lot of other Black fathers will tell you this, like, you know, it's difficult to send your son out in the world knowing that everybody at a certain age doesn't just think he's the cute kid anymore. They are expecting him to do or be something that he more than likely is not. And so it's going to take conversation. It's going to take sharing our experiences with each other. It's going to take some people who haven't had the same experience as you and me with the race to know that everybody is, you know, Black people specifically, you know, are not to be, you know, prejudged. You know what I mean? We all have our own path, and you know, it's sad, but it's the truth that we just have to continue to speak up even today.
I'll say one thing that I told several of my artists that I manage.
Yeah.
It's like, we need the musicians, you know, because many times when our nation was off tilt,
yeah,
we needed our sirens, we needed our musicians, we needed our scribes and poets to lead us to a better level. And so I encourage you, man, keep that music flowing. It'll guide us, it'll lead us. Mm-hmm. You're gonna bring us to a better place and bring us to a better light. And so
I agree.
And I say, as Pops, man, I love you with my heart. I'll be praying for you, your family, your kids, and I want to thank you.
Appreciate that.
As a Caucasian man, but thank you, and beyond you, the Black race of incredible musicians and songwriters and singers and soulful scribes. Thank you for bringing us to a better place already. We all just got to go. We got to bring it a little bit higher, but thank you for
a lot of it higher, but we're going to do it.
We're going to do it, and we'll do it together. We'll lock arms, but you're one of my sons of the heart, and I appreciate you. And thank you for doing this for me, man.
No problem. I'm all in with you, and you know, we're going to continue to support each other. Thank you for having me.
God bless you, man. Give my love to your family. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, that was Adam Blackstone. We're so thankful to have him on the show today. I want to encourage you to follow us wherever you have podcasts, Apple, Spotify. You can also go to YouTube and follow us there. We're so thankful that you have joined us. Please remember to like, share, communicate with others. We'll talk to you next time.